Making people like you comes down to one simple but overlooked skill. The power of the skill was made undeniably clear to me through a professor I had in college. One night, I was walking along the campus courtyard with a group of upperclassmen, and we were talking about planning our schedule for the next semester. And I brought up taking Professor McCullough's marketing class. My classmate's face literally lit up. "Oh my gosh," she told me, "you need to take this guy's class." Then, all of a sudden, practically interrupting her, another girl added, "I love that guy. He is literally the best." I was standing there thinking to myself, wow, that reaction was pretty enthusiastic. This guy must be cracking jokes all the time or have super easy content. And then the next semester rolled around. And at this point, I've heard multiple people more rave about this guy and how awesome his class is. And to be honest with you, I've never heard so many people have a good review of a professor before. So at this point, I was intrigued. I was like, okay, let's see what all the fuss is about. A few weeks into his class, I began to realize something. I realized that while most professors were messing around with their slides or sticking their face in their computers, he would be walking around the classroom, actually talking to us. And I don't mean the fake, "How's it going?" small talk. He asked real questions. Once I mentioned to him that I had an interview coming up for this company that I wanted to work for. And not only did he help me get that connection in the first place, but a few weeks later, right before class, he came up to me and asked, "Hey, how did that interview go?" I was honestly shocked. He remembered that I had that interview and that it literally just happened at that time. I mean, the guy had dozens of students, and he still followed up with me on something like that. And he didn't just do it with me. He would do it with everybody and in different ways. When student athletes were wearing their game day shirts, he would ask who they were playing that day and what position they played. And he'd later follow up with how the game went. He would ask people what they were majoring in, or if anybody had fun plans for the Super Bowl, things like that. And I think one of the most amazing things about it is that he would remember details that we told him, and he would bring them back up in conversations later. And it was because of this that it really felt like he cared about us. He was literally the only professor who I felt I had a genuine connection with, and that actually cared about what I was doing beyond just passing the class. And that's when it clicked for me, why everybody liked him. It wasn't because he was flashy or funny or made life super easy. It's because he had the skill that most people overlook. He listened. And not the kind of listening where you're waiting for your turn to talk, or you're just trying to look polite. He listened to understand, and he'd ask follow-up questions. He listened so well that it made people feel seen, valued, and important. And in turn, everybody loved him. And I know the skill of listening sounds super easy and super obvious, but how many people do you know that actually really listen to you? Let me know in the comments because I really am curious about that. The underrated skill of listening is exactly what I want to talk to you about today. How it isn't just a soft skill or something that's nice to do. It is the foundation of every strong relationship, every successful communicator, and honestly, every likable person. Okay, so let's get into everything by talking a little bit more about why listening is so impactful. I'm going to talk about 3 things here that you probably aren't thinking about most of the time. And the first thing about listening that I'm going to mention here is that listening truly is a gift to others. It is amazing. Listening is an opportunity to step outside of our self-absorbed world and non-verbally tell someone, "Hey, I care about you." And of course, the title of this video is, how do you get people to like you? So you might be thinking, oh my goodness, is listening to somebody with that intention involved really an act of selflessness? Well, yes, it is a natural human desire to want to be liked by others. There is nothing wrong with that. But if that is your only intention, I don't think you're going to get very far. In most cases, getting someone to like you is simply the byproduct of treating them well. And something most people forget is that your attention is one of the greatest gifts that you can give someone. When you're tired and drained and all you want to do is go home, curl up into a ball, and talk to no one and just watch Netflix. But then you notice something is off with your sister, so you ask her about how her day was instead. And then you proceed to spend your only 30 minutes of free time listening to her rant about this mean boy at school. It's a simple action, but it really is a gift of self. So simple, but so powerful. I mean, while that took a lot of energy from you, your little sister needed to get all of that out, and she probably loved you a lot more in that moment because you gave her that attention and you showed that you care. And this doesn't just apply to close relationships, but literally to every relationship, personal and professional. Think about it. Have you ever been in a group, let's say a group of colleagues or something, where you're so excited to share the story you have when you're all out for lunch, but then when you start talking, you can just feel that no one's really paying attention. They're checking their phones or having side conversations, looking past you, zoning out. I mean, how does that make you feel? It makes me feel pretty crummy, like what I have to say doesn't matter. Now, compare that to the complete opposite situation. When you're not so sure if people in the group are going to care about this story that you have about a weird hobby of yours. But then all of a sudden, your coworker is leaning in. They're making eye contact and they're asking questions. I mean, how does that make you feel? It makes me feel like that person actually values me and what I have to say. And all of a sudden, I just feel closer to that person. People who listen well are magnetic. And when you can be that person for someone, you will build deeper connections, make somebody's afternoon, and become more liked and valued. And let's be real, being a good listener is rare these days. Everyone is so busy, everyone is rushing around, caught up in their own goals and schedules, and very few people stop to spend an extra 5 minutes actually getting to know someone. But when you do that, it stands out. The second thing I want to mention here is that being a good listener will open doors. Like I mentioned, listening is a way to communicate to others that you care about them, making them, most of the time, like you. And when people like you, they are more likely to trust you and more likely to help you in any way that they can. In a work environment, when it's time for the promotion and there's 5 qualified candidates, who do you think is going to get the job? Probably the person who the boss just plain likes more. And when you're in a work meeting and you pitch this fabulous idea about a new set of protocol, I don't know, whatever it is it going to help that your coworkers already love you and that all of your bosses think that you are just an amazing person? You bet it is, because they probably aren't going to care much about Betty's idea because Betty is cold and kind of rude. No offense, Betty. The point is that becoming that likable person who people look to and who seems to be getting amazing opportunity after amazing opportunity can be as simple as being a good listener. The third big advantage of listening that I want to mention is that it helps you to learn. One of the biggest misconceptions about communication is that it's about what you say. But the truth is, when you're talking, you're not even learning anything new. I remember going into a networking event once where I didn't know much about the industry. I was super new, so I decided to just go in there and be a sponge. I didn't talk much about myself. Instead, I just kept asking questions and listening to people's stories. And by the end of that event, I had learned so much about the industry, about what people care about, even about the career paths I'd never even considered. Whether you are new to an industry or not, there was always something to learn from others. And listening gives you that opportunity to learn new information, new perspective, and insight that you'll never get if you're the one doing most of the talking. So now the question becomes, how do you become a better listener? Because it doesn't always come naturally. Here are 3 simple ways to sharpen this skill. The first is to get into a mindset of curiosity. The best listeners aren't just nodding politely. They're genuinely curious. They want to understand the other person's world. When you approach a conversation kind of like a detective, looking for clues, trying to piece together who this person is and what matters to them, you're naturally going to start asking better, deeper questions. For example, instead of just asking, "How was your weekend?" and moving on, you might follow up with, "Oh, you mentioned that you're working on a project. How is that going?" That simple curiosity creates connection. The second technique of effective listening is this technique that I learned from Chris Voss, former FBI negotiator. It's amazing, I love it, and it's a game changer. He calls it labeling. This is when you identify and name the emotion or experience that the other person is having. For example, if someone is telling you about a huge job interview and how they've barely slept this week, you might say, "It sounds like you're really overwhelmed." See what I did there? I was able to label the emotion behind the experience they described. It shows a deeper sense of listening, that you're not just hearing their words, you're understanding their experience. And when people feel understood, they open up more. Maybe you're not the best at coming up with follow-up questions, but you still want to show that you care. And whether that's the case or not, it is still just so important to give somebody your full attention. It's so simple, but honestly, I think one of the hardest parts about being a good listener, because in today's world, we're constantly distracted by phones, emails, to-do lists. I am definitely guilty of it. There have been way too many times where I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody, but I'm really stressed out because I have a million things to do. And all I can think about is my to-do list, the next thing that I have to do after this conversation is over. And that's wrong because, like I mentioned before, one of the greatest gifts that you can give someone is your full undivided attention. I think back about, Jesus' example. The greatest gift that he gave us is the gift of self. He literally died for us. And in the same kind of idea, obviously not to that extent, we can give this gift of self to others when we let our own selfish desires die and give our full undivided attention to that person. And it's just so important to remember to do that. And I'm constantly reminding myself of it. Because once again, nothing kills a conversation and a connection faster than when somebody feels like you are not really present with them. So there you have it, the simple secret to being liked by others. And if you've made it this far, well, thank you for being a real one. Would it be a crazy idea to hit that like button, to subscribe, and to share this with somebody who would benefit? There are many more videos to come on professional and personal advice, so be sure to stick around for the next video.